Ladies and gentlemen, theys and thems, my name is Chase, and today we're going to talk about proselytizing and sort of sharing Unitarian Universalism. Proselytizing and missionary work is something I've been thinking about for a very, very long time. There's a gentleman named Genetically Modified Skeptic, another YouTuber. He grew up LDS, and he talks about his experience with after leaving the Latter Day Saints church, like his experience with like door knocking and the door to door missionary evangelicism. And I grew up with a similar experience. I grew up in the Southern Baptist Convention, and something that we did in my youth group was go door to door and knock on people's doors, invite them to church. But we kind of stood within our community. We did some missionary work in other states in the South, but as far as proselytizing in that way, it stuck within the neighborhood. That is to say, it's not a uncommon experience that after you leave a religious organization that practices ministry in this way, to sort of feel a sense of guilt or shame. Now, for me, I really didn't. The way some other people talk about it, because I view my situation as like I was just a kid. I was following the instructions of people who were, in positions of authority above me, and they told me to knock on the door. But I bring up genetically modified skeptic specifically because in the video I saw of him talking about this, he specifically mentions do not be mean to the missionaries, and I just want to make that very clear that what I'm about to say in the following part of this video, and this is probably going to be a longer video, that I don't think you should be mean or rude to missionaries. The best thing to do is just say, hey, please add me to your do not contact list, and they will add you on their do not contact registrar. And if somebody else comes and knocks on your door, it's probably a different organization who has a different registrar. So I saw a post the other day on Reddit that was somebody talking about, oh, I converted to Unitarian Universalism. We really need to make a better word for converted with our tradition. But he was talking about, the church has done so much for me. My religious community, this Unitarian Universalist faith, has done much for me in a very difficult time. And he wanted to sort of do evangelicism. It's like this has done so much for me in my life. I want other people to experience the same joy. And while that is a good thing, there is a reason why us Unitarian Universalists are against missionaries. There's a reason why we don't go about this faith. And to put it bluntly, it is because a theology that supports missionaries, a theology that is evangelical, that wants to convert other people, is violent. It is a dangerous theology, and it is harmful. So I won't make this entire video about this book, but his Conversion is Violence by Swami Dayananda Saraswati. He's a traditional Advaita Vedantist, as he calls himself and as his disciples call themselves. With that said, in this speech that was converted into this pamphlet that I am recommending, he talks about, Jains and Jews and Hindus and even Buddhists and Zoroastrians. These groups of religions do not have a conversion theology. You're born into it, or you just decide that you want to be a part of it. Like when I was visiting his ashram in Pennsylvania, there was an older Indian woman who came up to me and very unpromptedly, but she told me, oh, being Hindu is in the heart. And I was like, okay, thank you so much. I did not feel Hindu, but thank you for making me feel included. The point is that these religious groups that do not have this type of conversion theology are not going door to door as salesmen trying to sell you their religion. You're either born into it, even within Judaism, more reformed liberal, for like a better words, versions. You can convert to Judaism and inherit that religion, or more orthodox ones. There's a lineage, there's a role of lineage where your mother has to be a Jew for you to be considered a Jew, and that's all fine and good, because that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the other side. We're talking about the harm that has been done by religions that do have a conversion theology, and how that affects us today, and why as Unitarian Universalists, but also just as a religious people in general, big blanket word religious people, we shouldn't be doing this. When I was in my undergrad, I got a bachelor's in business administration with a concentration in data science. I had to take one marketing class, and I'm glad it was only one because I hate marketers and I hate advertising. Different conversation for a different day, but it is a little bit relevant here. So one of the things that they taught me is the rule of 9. If you can show a potential consumer of your product 9 times through subliminal advertising, direct advertising, whatever it is, that they are increasingly more likely to buy your product. But the golden number is 9. You see this a lot with marketing campaigns where they'll do it for a certain amount of time, a certain amount of, for a week, because they're expecting you to use YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or whatever social media you're using. They're expecting you to look at it and open it 9 times to see their product as you're scrolling through. So now let's apply this to religion. How many times, especially me being from the South, now that I'm in the mountain region of the United States, I don't see it as much. It's very irritating at the best aspect of it, but at the worst aspect of it, which is I'm going to present to you now, is that this is a form of manipulation. When I see a sign driving down between Alabama to North Carolina, and I see a sign that says, Jesus is coming, where will you go after you die, with, a photo of hell and then a photo of heaven, their depiction of these two places. That's very manipulative. That's very violent. That's very aggressive to threaten me with eternal damnation when I'm just trying to drive down the road, when I'm using a public roadway that all of our tax dollars pay for, and you have taken up this giant billboard to tell me that I'm going to hell if I don't believe and think exactly the way you do. Is it not violent to go to somebody's property, to go to their home, the place where they feel safe and comfortable, and to knock on their door and then try to convince them to be a salesman, because really that's what it is, to say your religion is wrong, the way you are as a person, just your being is wrong, and when you die you're going to burn in hell for it, just for your existence, because you don't think and believe the way I do. So now you have to believe and think the way I do so that way you can receive salvation. And that is something that Swami Dayananda talks about in his book, that the word salvation doesn't exist in a Hindu context. And even in the other religions I've named, I don't think it exists in their context either. And within Unitarian Universalism, we don't believe in salvation because there's nothing to be saved from. Let me give you another example. I don't need everybody in the world to believe that the world is round. I know that the world is round. There's nothing that crosses my mind that makes me doubt, is the world round or is the world flat? So I don't need to knock on people's doors and tell them, hey, the world is round. Even if the person who answers the door believes that the earth is flat, it doesn't affect me because I know that the world is round. In a similar way, it is very silly to have this need that everybody needs to believe the same way you do. You need the entire city that you live in to believe in the same religion you do, in the same way, in the same denomination, the same formats. Then you need to the same state, then the same country, then the whole world. If your theology is so fragile that you need everybody in the world to think the exact same way that you do, is that really a theology worth believing in? Is that a theology that has a firm foundation that can't stand against people just asking a few questions and then believing differently? The fact that you're around and live in a world where people think differently than you is somehow problematic. Now, I would take a brief moment to say that there's 3 major religious traditions that come to my mind when I think of proselytizing. That is Christians, Muslims, and the Vaishnavas, specifically ISKCON, the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. And I want to say that not every Christian, Muslim, or Vaishnava believes in proselytizing or ministry in this way, but it is a trend that is more popular amongst these religions than others. There are very beautiful things that I appreciate and admire about all of these traditions. I'm not against any of these religions, but what I am critical of is this specific aspect that is common in their theology. Going back to proselytizing, I think it's foolishness to believe that you have all the answers, that your group has all the answers. In my case, I grew up in a small town in Alabama, and somehow we believe that the people in these four walls and the people who remotely resemble us, but it's still very uniquely controlled to this area, this part of the world, that we somehow have all the answers and we are the ones on the right side of this theological history in the world to come. And that is so silly. That is so like egotistical and like self-delusional. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it does not serve any use in making the world or even the individual spiritual life better. It is the constant telling yourself, "Oh, I have all the answers. I'm okay. I'm a part of the chosen people. I have all the right beliefs," and not being able to think or function beyond that. So I hope I've made a decent case on why I'm against proselytizing, but that doesn't answer the first thing that I brought up, that this religion has changed my life in such a positive way. How do I go about in changing it? And I'll tell a story. So when I was deployed, one of my friends was in the chapel with me. We were just, chatting, talking about nothing. And a gentleman comes in. He was a much higher rank than us, but he had this like vibe to him. He had this like sense of I hate to use the word stoic because I think of broicism, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. He had this like aura behind him, this energy. And he was just asking like, "Hey, I want to start like a meditation group." I think he was a stoic actually. Something that was like very into a disciplined silent meditation, very unsexy in that way, but the results were there. The results were he carried them. So I was helping him do the paperwork, figuring out the details for him to use the chapel spaces to do this meditation group because that was my job. And then as soon as he left, my friend turns to me and said, "That guy has years of meditation." I think he told us he's been meditating for like 20 years, and it was obvious. It was completely apparent to us just because of the vibe that he carried, and that says something because it makes you want to ask him, how did you become this? How did you become this ideal person, this like embodiment of perfection? And not to put perfection on any individual person, but you get the point I'm getting at. When it comes to religious traditions and trying to share it with other people, in my opinion, I think we should embody it. You should carry your religion in such a way that inspires people, that makes people look at you and say, that person has something that I don't have, and I need to ask them how to get it. If as Unitarian Universalists, we put love in the center of our tradition, we should be such loving people that people look at us and say, and they know that we go to church, that they know that we're religious, and they say, "What church do you go to? What practices do you follow? What does your spiritual life look like? What does your religious life look like? And how can I emulate that so that way I can have what you have?" Now, of course, this is not to put ourselves in like a sense of spiritual authority, and then people who are looking at us as some guru figure. But it's a point of embodiment. It's a point of inspiration. It's a point of really carrying what your religion values and what your religion holds, and the most beautiful aspects of it. Was Swami Dayananda's example. Someone asked either him or one of his direct disciples, why doesn't the Arshavita Sampradaya go out and do missionary work? And his answer was, "Who invited you to come to this temple? Who invited you to come to this church? Who invited you to come here? Nobody did. You did it on your own. You found it, you thought it was important, and you went on about it." I was talking to another Unitarian Universalist minister, and I was like, how did you find Unitarian Universalism? Because they converted to it. And their answer is they took a world religion course in their undergrad, and they sort of loosely knew about Unitarian Universalism. And when they were driving down the road one day, they just happened to see a Unitarian Universalist church on the side of the road and just pulled over, knocked on the door, and then had like a 3-hour conversation with whoever was there. Now that takes a certain level of I don't know about you, but for me, like pulling over on the side of the road takes a certain level of conviction. I'm not one to divert my route too much, but it says a lot. Nobody asked him to go to this Unitarian Universalist church. They felt so compelled that they would, and I think that's the point. When I was in the chaplain corps, we had a term called ministry of presence, and it's just being there. It's just being there and embodying that sort of spiritual religious demeanor. And I think that's more important and effective than being a salesman. Hello, friends. There's another aspect of ministry of presence that I did not mention in this original recording that I wanted to add. So, when your church has like a booth at, say, a Pride festival, or is in the Pride parade, or you're at some other city function where you're just sort of making yourself available, I would also consider that not as a form of direct proselytizing, as being a salesman, but as being available. If people see your church and decide to come up, and then they want to read the pamphlet, and then you engage in a conversation with them, that is okay. And I would even go as far as to say that we should be doing that. We should be involved in our communities in that way, and sort of presenting our religious liberal values to be a part of the cultural zeitgeist of religious people, instead of allowing the current idea of what people think of when they think of being religious as being the predominant idea. So being a part and embedded in the community is definitely an aspect, and a very important aspect, of ministry of presence, because you don't have anything to offer people. I know it sounds almost backwards, but as a religious people, we really don't have anything to sell or offer in this way. If people want to participate in what we have and what we're doing, that's great. But first, we need to have something. We need to make sure that our churches and our communities are doing good work, that inside the walls and outside the walls, that we're being loving and charitable, and doing things that forgive the no good Scotsman's fallacy, but what all good religious people should do. It is about both the church, the community in itself, and the individuals who are in the outside world, and maintaining a sense of open arms and lovingness and acceptance to everyone who they come in contact with. Now, this is very difficult. I'm not going to say this is something that is easier said or easier done than said, but it is better. It is a much better alternative than having a theology that claims that we have all the right answers and somehow you need to start thinking like us. Maybe I'll make a part 2 on this, because there's so much to be said about proselytizing and better ways to do ministry. But long story short, proselytizing is very dangerous, and just embody your religion and love people. And if they want to come to your church, your religious community, your sacred space, then they will. Hello, friends. While editing this video, I realized it made it seem like I was saying that you shouldn't invite people to church or church-related events at all. And I want to give a slight caveat that I have been in situations where I have found that some of my friends might be interested in Unitarian Universalism, or they like the things that I'm talking about when I talk about my religion, and they ask me questions about it. So I do think that there is a time and a place to invite people to these sorts of things, but my point is to not be a salesman. Not to try to, every time you engage with a conversation with somebody, you're asking yourself, how can I get them to come to my church? How can I get them to start being a Unitarian Universalist or convert to Unitarian Universalism? If you know somebody and you're talking about Unitarian Universalism, you're having that kind of conversation about the religion, and they're showing interest, there's nothing wrong with, making yourself available and say, hey, I'm going to church this Sunday. Do you want to come with me? Or, I go to this small group. Would you be interested in coming? That is totally fine. I don't see anything wrong with that. My best advice, and I guess the whole point of this video, is to not have this mindset that we're trying to make converts, that we're trying to do this missionary work. We're just trying to be loving. We're just trying to be charitable. We're just trying to, give positivity and do good works in the world. Thank you for watching. I invite you to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Have a good day, and thank you for watching.